Welcome to Give Me Hope with your host and author, Johanna Vendel. Come join the conversation as Johanna focuses on sharing impactful personal narratives of loss. Her platform provides a safe space for individuals to express themselves, find comfort, and build connections as they navigate their grief journey. So now, please welcome the host of Give Me Hope, Johanna Vendel.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna. Today, I have a very heartbreaking but interesting story. The person in my studio today has overcome so much in her life that she decided to share it with the world, and she also wrote her story down. She has accomplished so much. I am not going to tell you anything more. I'm going to let her tell you her story. So let's introduce Valerie Juillerat.
Hello there. Thank you for
Hi.
having me.
You are very welcome, and welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Valerie, I don't know you very well personally yet, but what I've learned of you in this last few months that I have been on the International Impact Book Award page, I have met quite a few authors, and your story has captured me quite a lot, because you've been through so much.
Well, everybody goes through the storms of life of some kind. And what I have found is what makes the difference is how you handle the adversity. I remember a story one time by Joyce Myers. I used to listen to her all the time. And she was talking about her husband, Dave, loved to golf. And she asked him, he was starting to have little troubles with his physically. And she said, Dave, what would you do if you can't golf? Because that was just like the thing that he loved to do. And he says, I've thought about that. And I've decided that I'll be okay. And I think that psychologically, that's the place that we have to get to, is that no matter what we're going to go through, we're going to get through it. And the thing with Joyce was she was raised in a very abusive home, and her brother was as well. Well, her brother ended up dying alone in an abandoned apartment because he had a drug overdose. And that's the lifestyle that he chose. That's how he decided to handle, what he had been through.
Yes.
Where Joyce took her story and ran with it and is sharing it with the world to be able to help people. And that's what I wanted to do. I knew that, there's a lot that is not in my book.
Yes. Before we get into your story, please tell us, who is Valerie?
Ready?
Yeah.
Well, as a young girl, my grandparents and my aunt and uncles would make sure that they took me to church when I would visit them. And that's where I found Jesus. And so he had a very profound impact on my life at a very early age. I was, I believe, 10 years old when I gave my life to Christ and got baptized. And it was my grandfather, who was a pastor in a church, who baptized me.
Wow.
And he ended up pastoring until he was 93 years old. He was
Oh my
pastoring to the
goodness.
weekend before he passed away.
Wow.
And my other grandfather was also a pastor. So, some of the things that I do, my mom says, I just don't know where you get this. I don't know where you get this. And one day out of the blue, she texts me and she says, I've got it. And I'm like, you got what? And she says, it's because your grandfathers were pastors. This is where you get this. I just thought it was funny. So yes, they had a profound impact on me growing up. I spent a lot of time with them. And I went to college to be a graphic designer. Got my Bachelor of Arts in graphic design. And I did a lot of oil paintings. I love doing oil paintings, but it's, once your life gets really busy with kids and stuff, then those kind of things get put aside. And So hopefully one day I'll get to pick up the paintbrush again. But I got to tell you a short snippet of what happened with one of these paintings.
Yes, sure.
So we had taken a vacation to the Grand Canyon. And so I'd gotten a bunch of snapshots of that and come home and I was like, that would be a really cool painting to do. So sit down, start doing it. And one night it was late, everybody else was in bed, and I go to turn around to flip the light off. And when I did, you always look back to see what you've accomplished for the day. And I look at it and it's like, oh my word, it took on this whole new perspective. It was just like you were on the other side of the Grand Canyon. The 3D perspective totally changed. And and I look at that, it's a really important piece to me because it's like God was showing me that with the talents that he gives us, if we're using them right, there's so much more he's going to do with that talent that you never would have realized that you could do. I did not intentionally paint it to make it a 3D perspective, but he was able to do that. And so I think that's just something that we need to think about when, he's putting those dreams and goals in our hearts. And if we act on that and we step forward in that, he's going to do amazing things with it. I graduated from the university, Huntington University, and right out of school, not too many people know this, but right out of school, I opened up an art supply store. That was my dream. I
Oh,
wanted an art supply store. So I did that for several years, and then that grew into a screen printing business, which I did
wow.
for many years. Yes, for many years. So that's where my ex-husband and I had met, and we had a business that we had grown together. It was his business originally, and then I hopped in there and started working with him as well. But
Taking
there's
over.
more of that story to come.
Yes, yes. I've read a little bit about what happened, and but if you would like to start to tell your story about why you wrote your book, I think then we can get into little things like that. And if you want to
Sure.
talk about it, because I do have questions here and questions there, I found a lot of things intriguing. But you can continue then to tell your story about your book and how that came about.
Okay. So the book is called Finding Hope When Storms Don't Cease. And it's about a season in my life when I had lost my dream business, my dream home, and both of my teen sons got into the world of drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
And when I got married, I was married or together, we were together 19 years with my first husband, the father of my boys, and there was a really big age difference for us. And so, that does play a factor in things. And
Mm.
so we had separated, and then I married this other gentleman that he had he had a lot of faith. He was a very he had a lot of faith, and that I was drawn to that because I wanted someone in the family to be the spiritual leader. And what I didn't realize was how, sometimes we just make these decisions that once we step into it, we feel like we can't get out. And I really loved him, and he really loved me. That I know, but the marriage was toxic because he liked to drink and he was just a very hard man. So there was a lot of emotional abuse. It was never physical, but there was a lot of emotional
Yes.
abuse.
See, when they
And
drink like that, I have similar experience, especially with my dad and my brother. My dad was an alcoholic before he became a Christian.
mhm,
And my little mind at that time, was, I mean, I couldn't grasp everything that was going on, but with him drinking, he changed, his personality changed.
yes,
And
yes,
he would like scream at my mom and you know, kids have to grow up with that.
yeah, right.
And they don't know that for instance, I was listening a lot of times, I couldn't sleep. I'll get up and stand in the hallway and listen, and
Yeah.
I'll just pray for them, being so little and already praying that
Mm,
God should help them is it's sad to think that kids must grow up in that situation.
yeah.
But you've been
Well,
through a lot.
that's kind of where things ended for me because we were married 8 years. And the a lot of the reason people ask me now, well, why did you stay in so long? And because I was to the place where I didn't know myself anymore.
Mm,
And it was just the emotional stress, and I became very ill because of it as well. It did do some physical damage. And my answer is that because I was a Christian and I'd already been divorced once, and and you've got that branding on you, and I didn't want it again.
yes.
But there was a day that both my boys came home from their dad's house. And as they're walking through the kitchen, they're coming on all beat boppy and smiling and happy. And all of a sudden, he comes out from back in his room where he spent most of his time alone.
Mm,
He didn't interact with the family too much in the later days. And, he tore into him about something. And, that was just common.
mm,
And I'm watching my boys. I'm just sitting on the couch and I'm watching my boys as they're walking through the living room and they start to head up the stairs to bed. And it just the drained look on their faces and then as I'm watching them go up the stairs though, it turned to rage. And they're like 10 and 12 years old at the time. And I knew right then that it was time that I had to get us out of the situation because I was really scared that something really bad was going to happen someday because you hear all the stories about the teenage boys who snap because of their stepfather, when those relationships are not good. And so I just felt that for our safety, for everybody's safety, we needed to get out.
yes. See, sometimes the mother, when they are now married to someone else and the stepfather has to raise the children, the mother don't see how sad the kids are because
Yeah,
they have to be raised by someone else. It
right,
wasn't their choice, you
right.
know, um, for you to leave your first husband and the situation they were in, although they see the situation that you were in.
Yeah. I was single for a while, for about a year, and then I met a young man that he was my dream guy, and we dated for about 9 months, and everybody thought we were going to get married, including me.
Mm.
Well, then he took an opportunity out of state
Oh,
and decided that he was going to take it that adventurous life and he wasn't ready to commit to anything and so he left me with a broken heart but we remained friends for I mean we were still extremely close for like 7 years later and then I finally remarried and I have an absolutely amazing husband now so absolutely
that's
amazing.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. If you just believe that God will always just carry you through all these things. He
Yes.
does carry you through. Sometimes it feels like you are in a hole, but eventually He helps you to get out of it.
Right.
And then when you look back, you realize, oh, He was actually there all the time.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, so then you married this husband of you now,
Hmm.
but your children, that was a difficult stage in your life when you had to go through all of that with your
Yeah.
children.
Yeah, so I had a 7 year period when the gentleman friend who left. Um, at that time, I mean, I was like, I was in a short period of time where everything was wonderful.
Mhm.
My ex-husband and I had built my dream home. It was a Cape Cod home out in the country with a pond out front, and so I had my home, and then I'd met this gentleman, and he was everything that I thought he was, I wanted in life. And our home had peace in it. It was become a very peaceful place. And then my ex-husband got very sick. And they ended up, of course, he had kept the business because originally it was his. But his sister called me up one day and they wanted to know if I wanted to buy it. Well, I had put 8 years into the business. So, that was my dream business. It was everything that I
Yes.
knew. And so I'm like, yes, yes. But there was a lot of damage that hadn't been done while he was sick that, the business was just financially struggling at the time.
Mm.
Said, if anybody's going to turn this around, it's going to be you. So, that made me feel really good because even though we had the divorce and everything, they believed in me. And I thought, yes, I'm going to make this work. And so I buy it. Well, so I had everything in life that I thought I wanted at the time, and it was all going so well. And then my gentleman leaves, and so I really went through a really deep depression, and it was really strange for me because I'd never been that low before. And I remember my mom coming in to visit, and we're kind of sitting there on the porch looking out of the pond one day, and I said, "Mom, I just can't find joy. I just can't feel it." And she says, "Well, honey, you're grieving." And I never really looked at it that way. But that's what it was. It was almost like because we were so entwined spiritually, even that I felt like I had lost half my soul.
Yes.
So, I started realizing one day I woke up to the sound of a bird out my window. And I'm like, oh, I just love that sound. It's so pretty. And I realized it's like, oh my gosh, I just experienced joy. That's what joy felt like. And so every day then I was looking for something out there that would make me feel just a moment of joy. It was listening to the boys when they were laughing and that that just lifted my heart. And that's how I got myself out of the slump. That and I had remembered a story one time on the radio of a lady who she was going through depression and she was laying in bed and she wouldn't get up and her husband come in there and he says, "Look, you got to stop having a pity party for yourself and get up." And whatever it was that, what he said just hit her the right way that she's like, you're right.
Mm.
And so from when I heard that, I thought, okay, if I go through something like that, I'm going to give myself 3 days. I'm going to give myself those 3 days to cry, to sleep, to scream, do whatever I need to do to get those kind of emotions out.
Yes.
And then I'm going to get back and I'm going to go back and do life because we just have to get past it. We have to keep going
Yes.
and living. God put us here for a reason and there's still work to do. So if we're just laying in bed being sad for ourselves, that's not going to change anything.
Yeah, sometimes people say these harsh things to us, like, just get up. Someone told me, just build a bridge and get over it.
Mm,
You know?
yeah,
And at that time, I couldn't.
yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't.
yeah.
And just a while ago only, I
Doing better.
built that bridge and I
Good.
got
Good.
over it.
Well, I think everybody has a different time of healing. Everybody's different. I know when my current husband Tim, his wife passed away. She had had MS for many, many years, and he was really struggling. We're tax professionals by trade now. And so we were right in the middle of tax season and he was really struggling to do the work because, mentally he's still grieving.
mm,
And someone had made the comment, well, he just needs to get past this and get his work done. And I said, well, everybody grieves differently. Everybody heals at a different time. So, you need to allow for that and you have to be understanding that. But we also have our own part in that healing journey of the steps that we need to take to help ourselves.
definitely. I also say, I will never get over my people and my
Right,
grief,
right.
but I surely have now learned how to live with it.
There you go.
So it's about carrying that with you because there's no way you can get over it.
Correct. Totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep. I have felt the call for many, many years, 25 years actually, to be a speaker and a writer.
Mm.
And I heard that call when I was pregnant with my first son. That's how I can remember how many years it is.
Wow.
Pregnant with my first son, and I was at a Beth Moore conference. And she was speaking, and I literally, I heard the Holy Spirit say, "One day you're going to be on that stage." And so I knew that I was supposed to be, maybe it wasn't that stage, but I knew I was going to speak someday. And for many years, though, every time I would try to step out in that, it was just like the doors just, they would never open. And I didn't understand why. And I believe it's because, God's timing is everything.
Mm.
There was a lot of things that he had to do in me to develop me to be where I am now, to be able to handle a ministry, for one.
Mm.
And also just he needed to give me the right story. And I had a lot of stories along the way, and someday I'll write about those too. But this was the most important one, I think, for this time. And so my boys end up starting to get into the drugs and alcohol. And right before that happened, though, I was sitting on the bed one night and I started feeling just a little unction that maybe it was time to start speaking and writing. And, I was busy with the screen printing business and everything, but there was just that little pull. And I said, okay, God. And I was actually coming up with this. I had this picture in my mind of this traveling gallery. I saw these life-size paintings. I mean, like really large paintings that you're standing in front of that are, because I'm an oil painter, and I wanted to do the large paintings where you're kind of in a cove, like they're semicircle,
Mm.
and they all tell a story. And in the story, I'm playing. There's music that you're listening to, so you got headphones on, and then you got the kind of the sensory thing going on, and you can connect with the music, but then you start hearing the story of what that painting really means.
Mm.
And it was the story of how God got me through each one of those things that they're viewing. And so, my creative juices are flowing and I'm like, okay, God, can you just confirm that this is something that I'm supposed to do?
Mm.
Is this the time that I'm supposed to start writing and speaking and all this? And I heard it as loud as day. He said, Valerie, if you do this and you step out in obedience and you follow me, you may have to be willing to lose your dream home, your dream business, and one of your sons to drugs and alcohol. And so I just sat there for a moment and I'm like, yes, because I said, Lord, I just want you to use me. Just use me as your instrument. I want to reach thousands. I don't want to just reach a few.
Yes.
And, people are like, how in the world could you say that when he told you you may have to lose your son?
Yes.
And it was because there was so many years that I had seen him walk with me that I knew that no matter what happened in my life, he was going to get me through it as long as I kept him by my side. So I said yes, not knowing what lose would mean.
Yeah.
And so it was a month later when the business stuff started happening, the crazy things in the business. Um, I eventually had to give up my home because of the finances of the business. I eventually had to give up the business because it was already struggling and then COVID hit. Right when I had gotten it, like 2 years, I had it on stable ground and then COVID hits. And with screen printing, that's everything. And your schools are closed, your churches are closed, all your sporting events, your festivals, that's what your business is based around.
Yes.
And everything was shut down. So I eventually I had to let that go. And then the boys were getting into the drugs and alcohol. And, it's really difficult, especially for a Christian mom or a Christian family, to watch your children self-destruct or get into that kind of behavior because you've raised them right. The boys were raised in church. We sat at the dinner table and we had our supper together and we had conversations, and they were in youth group. They were VBS. You tried to surround them with as much of God as you possibly can so
Yes.
that they can carry that with them.
Yes.
So when they both it made it even harder because they both got into it. It wasn't just one, and both of them got into it. And so then you've got that guilt trip going on as a mom of, well, what did I do wrong? What
Yes.
else could I have done right? And you just can't allow yourself to go down that path because they're individuals who have to make their own choices. And when they become a certain age, God has to be the one. You have to be willing to give your children to him and trust him with them.
Yes, just how you had to go through so much in your life, you had to personally give your heart to Jesus and say, I trust you, Lord. And they need to go through those things themselves.
But the one thing that when you are in a position like that, number one, you got to stop blaming yourself.
Mm.
And number two, you just got to continue loving them where they're at. Because I think that's the one thing that really helped the boys get through it was I set the boundaries, which were very hard to decide what's right and what's wrong in that area. But things like somebody just recently asked me, well, how do you set boundaries? And it was like once they got to a certain like when they hit 18 and because they were in and out of jail. I mean, constantly in and out of juvenile centers and the jail. And we had car wrecks. And I mean, like every other weekend, it was something the police were calling. And so you're constantly on this emotional roller coaster.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah, they definitely were boys. But they kept going in and out of the system. Well, finally at 18, I'm like, look, I'm not because before we were always their father and me were always there on court day, or we were always at all the meetings or the counseling sessions or whatever. But once they hit 18, I said, I'm not going to sit here in the courtroom anymore and watch you do this to yourself. These are your choices. They're not my choices for you.
Yeah.
So, there's certain things that you can step away and
Yes.
things like not bailing them out,
Mhm. Yes, let them sit there
let
and
them
let
sit
them
there for
feel
the
it.
night. Yeah. So there was times where, the first incident we bailed out. After that, there wasn't no bailing out. They had to suffer the consequences of it. But we did have two overdoses for my youngest son, David.
Mm.
And the first one was a heroin overdose. And I will tell you, I lived 45 minutes away when it happened. He was at his dad's house in his bedroom behind a locked door. And really, it was by the grace of God that his dad heard him making strange noises that, just because his dad's kind of hard hearing. So he ended up busting the door down and found him. And they had to use it was started out with two Narcan shots to revive him, to pull him back. And then I get the call. So I'm 45 minutes away. And I'm starting to ask God, is tonight the night? Is this what you mean? So I get to the hospital and it was during COVID. So we couldn't all go into the room. We had to take turns going into the room. And so when it was finally my turn, I'm just sitting there looking at him and I'm like, God, is tonight the night that you mean that I'm going to lose my son?
Mm.
And I couldn't cry for 5 days. It was the strangest thing, but I was just numb. And I noticed that his chest was not going up and down. And so I'd asked one of the nurses, I said, son, and he's on a respirator, but yet it was just, I just realized that it was the respirator was the only thing keeping him alive. And they ended up giving him a third Narcan shot. So he did survive that one. And then he gotten in some more troubles again, but then he got out. They sent him to uh, a juvenile like prison. It was the prison system, but it was for the juveniles. And the weekend before he was supposed to go to court for this. Now, mind you, at the time he's doing the drugs. He was mostly doing marijuana and alcohol. But I had this dream, and I don't know what you think of dreams, but
Oh,
in the dream, I heard one of my sons come in the bedroom door. And at first I thought it was David coming in and then all of a sudden the feeling of the room changed and it felt like Austin. And he comes up and he just stands beside me and he didn't say anything. And I'm laying there thinking, I am so tired. What does he want? Just say something, ask the question. I just want to go back to sleep.
yeah.
And all of a sudden the room felt totally different and it just felt evil. And you see these movies where, you leave your body, and I literally was like, I was looking down at myself, and I could see that it was neither one of my sons at this time. There was a demon sitting beside me, and he had pressed his finger up against my shoulder and just held it there. And then he took his tongue and he ran it up my arm. And he starts laughing and he says, Valerie, he says, I'm not done with your boys yet. And I'm not done with you yet either. And then I quickly woke up. For 24 hours, I could feel that finger on my arm.
Wow.
And I couldn't go to work that morning. I mean, I was just, because we were getting ready to go to court the next day. And so I'm just sitting on my couch, just bawling, Kleenex, Kleenex boxes laying there. And I'm like, God, what is going to happen? Because I was so scared for him to go in that prison. And all I wanted was for the judge to put him in a rehab and get him the help he needed, not prison. So he ends up going to court and they send him to prison. And so while we're there visiting, they ended up, they had told us he was not going to graduate, that he was not, I was really pushing the fact that I didn't want him in prison because I wanted him to be able to get his grades and graduate because he was a senior that year. And the prosecutor's office is like, he had his chances as education. He's not going to get it now. Well, they ended up doing online schooling in there, and he got straight A's. And the week before he was supposed to be released was when his graduation was, and the judge let him out a week early so that he could walk across the stage and graduate in his hometown. So, I'm thinking, okay, well, I must have got this wrong. Maybe the dream wasn't a real thing. Until he comes home and I find a note in one of his folders that came from the prison. And it was of another prisoner who gave it to him on his way out the door, that he had a business. And when he got out in 2 months, he was going to go into business with David and make him a businessman. Well, he did. And so then David started dealing. So then we ended up with some even bigger problems, of course. Mm-hmm. And then one night, him and my other son were together with a friend, and they were drinking, and David had gone to work that day and he had been smoking pot, and he got fired from his job because the smell was on his clothes. And so his girlfriend and him had also been fighting because of the things he was doing. And so he leaves there, and he just lost his job. He just lost his girl. And he gets a text from this guy that says, I have some Perk 30s for you if you want them. Well, supposedly Perk 30s, if you snort them, just gives you a high. So he's like, why not? So he goes and gets it. And the three of them, both sons and their friend, all three took a hit of it. And everything was fine. They went out to the car and was just drinking and listening to some music in the car. And his girlfriend was over there that night, but she was in one of the other rooms. And so she was out in the car with them. And they're laughing and carrying on, listening to some music. And all of a sudden, David just drops over his head, become very unresponsive. And so one of the things that I do is I do a presentation. It's called Finding Hope When Storms Don't Cease. And we kind of reenact some of these things that happen. And we've actually filmed this particular 911 scene where she calls into the police department. And
Yes,
it's chilling.
I've actually seen that. And that's your book trailer, isn't it?
It is the book trailer. Yes, there's different pieces that we filmed of the story, and that's part of that trailer. Yeah.
We will show the people your book trailer if you don't mind.
Sounds wonderful.
Sure.
What am I supposed to do, Mom? You caused all this. You called the cops?
David, I told you what was going to happen if you brought drugs back in the house.
Open the door, Mom.
This is not my son. What have these drugs done to him?
Give me my phone back. I'm going to bed, Mom. I'll be coming back down.
All right, love you.
David, are you okay?
911, where is your emergency?
My boyfriend's not breathing.
How old is he?
19. What's his name?
David Rigdon.
David, can you hear me? I think we got an overdose here.
God, please help us.
Wow. So I was really impressed with this book trailer, and you say this is just a small part of it,
Yes.
but when I saw it, I didn't know you yet. You know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you yet, and I saw it a while ago, quite a while ago. Maybe it's because I was part of the International Impact Book Awards, and I must have come across your page and I must have seen it, but I didn't know you personally yet. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh my word, is this a movie? Or I should watch this, And then I realized that it's actually part of your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hope to one day be able to get it into film. We're actually in the middle of a screenwrite right now for that, and we'll just see where God takes it all. But that particular scene was it is pretty intense. That we were very fortunate that the police department gave us the actual 911 call. And so, you're hearing the real thing.
Yes.
And what ended up happening was that one pill that they split 3 ways had fentanyl in it. And the combination of him drinking, he just blacked out, and they almost lost him. The young lady, his girlfriend, was just in a panic and saying that, before the police department got there, she was begging them to hurry because his lips had turned white and his breathing was becoming very shallow. So once again, it was a Narcan shot that saved his life, and in the grace of God. But I know that some families, I have a hard time with this part because some families are not, they don't get the happy ending. They don't all survive. And I don't know that there still might be that day that comes where the Lord does take him home. But what I know right now is that no matter what, God can get you through. And that's why I said yes that night, because even if he would have chosen to take him home that night or the night before, there was a reason. There's always a reason, and he's going to give you the strength as long as you're leaning on him. He's going to give you the strength to get through that. And we may not know all the details of why, but I just got to the place where I just trust him with my everything.
Yes.
And I remember one time where there was something that was not working out, and I thought, God, literally, if I did not have you in my life, I don't know how I could get through these things, because you are my everything. And I just want people to hear my heart on that without him, it's so much harder, because you don't have that courage and that strength that we need when he needs to carry us through. When we can't get out of that bed by ourselves, it's his strength that we can rely on. And I know sometimes we say that so much, it sounds like a cliche, but it's true that it is him that gives us the strength each day to keep walking and to keep going.
Yes. I have actually noticed in your book that you use the storms of life for all your different chapters.
Yes.
And let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about that. We'll be back shortly.
Subscribe to this new podcast now. In a world that sometimes feels broken, there's still hope. Johanna Vendel, where real stories heal and inspire. Stories that touch the soul. We'll explore life, loss, and the incredible strength we find in the darkest moments. We'll laugh, we'll cry, and we'll rediscover the light that never truly goes out. This is a space to find connection, to feel understood, and to remember that you're not alone. Subscribe now and join me on Give Me Hope with Johanna. Let's find it together.
Donnie takes pride in restoring and transforming vintage campers with precision and care. At Colorado Vintage Campers, he handles everything from roof replacements and frame repairs to small fixes, appliance upgrades, and full frame-up restorations. The client's wish list is always the top priority, and Donnie makes sure every repair and restoration meets their expectations. Donnie doesn't only repair campers, he helps people create new spaces. Whether you need a mobile business, an extra guest room, a craft or hobby space, or a backyard getaway, he will make it happen. Call Colorado Vintage Campers. Your camper, your way. Repair, restore, rebuild.
Welcome back. And we were busy speaking to Valerie before the break, and she was going to tell me about her intriguing titles that she used in her book. And the titles is so stormy, and the lighthouse and the lightkeeper and things like that. I like it, and I was just interviewing a different lady as well about her book, and she also used the lifeboat, and things like that. And when I saw all these titles, I was like, oh, I need to like read a little bit about this and that. But then I read the story, and um, it's amazing how you came up with those titles.
So that idea actually came from my editor. And so I started Googling because I was trying to match up what the title and what the feel of the storm was to what was going on in my life.
In that
So if
chapter,
it,
yes.
yeah. So if it was really bad, it was the squall or something like that, or the hurricane. But then when we'd start seeing the sun peek out, then maybe we were talking about rainbows in the title. And so I tried to match it to whatever the emotion was going on at that scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is like really interesting to see how many titles you came up with,
I definitely learned
it's
some new
amazing.
words.
It's amazing. Well, your book has won 2 International Impact Book Awards, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I won the International Impact Book Award, and then I was also a finalist for Author of the Year through International Impact.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my word. Wasn't that just amazing? And that is where I actually met you for the first
Yes.
time. It was at the Oscars for Authors
Yes.
in Hollywood.
It was wonderful.
It was an amazing event. I must say, I met so many impactful people
Yeah.
and people with stories like yours. When I went there the first time, now I'm going to tell you something. Um, when I went there the first time, when I received my actual book award in February of this year,
Uh-huh.
this year has changed my life. You have no idea how this year have changed my life.
Same here.
But when I was there the first time, I was so overwhelmed because of my story, and I felt, I've been recognized for my story. I promise you, the tears was running down my face the whole time. I could
Bet.
hardly speak to
Aw.
anyone. I was hiding in a corner here, hiding in a corner there, trying to pat my face to not be
Aw.
red because my heart was just so overflowing. After I won that award, Valerie, I came home. I was offered a podcast, which I was kind of scammed into. But now this podcast of mine is just continuing,
Yeah.
It's a long story. You just have to go read about that also. But eventually, I think that award gave me my voice back.
There you go.
I couldn't speak about my family.
Mm.
I couldn't speak about the way they passed away. I couldn't speak about how God came into my life because I would be sobbing.
Oh,
It has strengthened me. You have no idea how God has helped me through giving me this award, and how everything has just been so easy to speak about now. It is
wonderful.
unreal, unreal. So yes, I think it is good when you get the opportunity to win an award like this, to put you out there and to get to tell your story to the world.
Absolutely.
It is definitely amazing. But yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot about you, and you've also been a sponsor for the International Impact Book Awards, and now I hear good things about you. You want
Yes.
to tell us what you are up to?
Yes. So my life this last year has changed a lot too. So I published my book last October. So it's been just a little over a year now. And my main focus was on the book and trying to get the story out and how many ways can I reach people with this? Because God gave me the story now and he made the timing perfect. So, my biggest goal was how do I use what we went through to help other people? How do I give them hope? How do I help them reach closer to Jesus? Because I want everybody to have the same relationship that I have with my Jesus.
Jesus. Yes.
So that was my goal. But what happened was I took a chance and right away I entered. Matter of fact, I wasn't even completely finished with the book when I was reaching out to the International Impact Book Awards and said, I want to enter. When, how can I do this? And so as soon as the manuscript was finished, I entered. And it was a couple months later, and I get the email back saying congratulations. And I'm thinking, no way, no way. I just released the book. And so, yeah, that was super exciting. And it just kind of validated that it was good enough to put out to the world. And so I went to the first gala, and the way just leading up to the gala, I hadn't even been in the gala yet. I went out there the day before and did an interview with them. And just the way that they were honoring the authors, the way they treated us was just, it was humbling. It was amazing. And I thought, man, you know what? We need to do this for the Christian authors. We need to lift them up more and help elevate them to where we can get their stories out more. And so I actually sat down with Nim Stant, who started the International Impact Book Awards, and I approached her and I said, "What have you ever felt led to expand your territory? Have you thought about, reaching this particular group of people?" And she said, "That's the funniest thing that you asked me that because you're the second person in the last 2 weeks to ask me." And I'm like, "Really?" So we conversed a little bit more. Well, then a couple weeks later, I reached out to her again, and she ends up calling me personally, and she says, "This is what I want to do." She says, I want to mentor you, and I want to teach you everything that I know and how I've built this. But I want you to have your own International Book Awards. It's not going to be tied to ours, but I'm going to help you to develop this." And so we're using theirs as a model, but ours is geared towards the Christian faith-based books. And so it is called the International Christian Book Awards. And we just launched it this past month. We've had our first winners in October.
Congratulations.
Miss Johanna is one of our winners. So super excited about that because just my heart right now is to honor and elevate authors in any way that we can. And I've seen how much my story has impacted the lives of others that I want to be able to help other authors to get their stories out to do the same thing because then we're multiplying. That's when we create our disciples. And I think that's what Nim's mindset is too. She's creating a disciple to be able to go out and multiply the work. And so it's been very, very exciting. A lot of hard work goes into it. You don't realize, but Just the responses from Christian authors already has been very exciting and humbling at the same time.
Yes. Well, I just personally hope that when people see this podcast of mine, that they will reach out to you and write their stories in so they can also share their stories with the world, because
Yes.
with Jesus in our lives, we can definitely reach for the stars.
Right.
Yes.
One of the things that I try to teach people is that when God's put that call on your heart or he gives you a dream, you need to step forward into that. And if you start going down the wrong path, he's going to turn you around or take you a different direction. But a lot of times, and I know I was kind of there for many years, I kept waiting on God. And there's a fine line there because yes, you need to wait on God's timing. You don't want to push through and just make something happen because it's not going to go the way you hoped. But God will bless it if you do step forward because a lot of times it's not us waiting on God, it's God waiting on us.
Yes.
And that was one thing I shared in I had the amazing opportunity to get to speak on the stage that night in Hollywood. And that's where my heart was to share with those authors that you got to keep stepping forward. You just got to step forward.
Yes, definitely. When God puts that on your heart, you have to do what He asks you to do. It is, I have a long story as well, and I personally had many questions about why God, why have you taken my entire family away from me? Why am I the last person standing? Then you hear people say to you, Johanna, you are strong. God has a purpose for you.
Yes.
And then you are grieving so much that you don't realize what that purpose is till God opens your eyes. And only when you let Him in completely, then you can see when He opens your eyes.
Right.
And it is just deep,
Yes.
to have God in your life. It's an experience that nobody can describe if they haven't experienced it in a way, because there's things that happens and just doors that open and
Right. Yes.
just it's just there are just so many things, and all I can say is God is good.
Yes, he is.
And I think you're doing a very good thing, and I'm glad that there are Christian Book Awards as well. I'm sure there are other Christian Book Awards as well. I'm not so much into writing my books in yet, but it is definitely a good thing if people can come and write their stories, and it can be acknowledged by Christian company.
Yeah, the thing that we want to do that's a little bit different is that we don't want to just give an award. We want to come alongside that author and help elevate them to a place where, different ways that we can find to give them exposure. Like we do author spotlights on our Facebook page and personal pages. We will you have a spotlight on our website. We also have a bookstore that we're developing. So it kind of serves a dual purpose. It's where every one of our winners will get to have their book in the bookstore. And that's just another outlet for them to be able to get their stories out. But it also gives a place for readers who just want an award-winning, good story, faith-based story. And they know that that's what they can find on our site.
Yes.
So there's a lot of aspects to this because we want to follow the author, and if they need the professional photo shots done, we're going to make sure that they can get those kind of things. We want to be able to help them to get a business built around their books. And if they want to get into film, we're going to do some workshops on that. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. And then there's going to be people out there who don't even have their book yet, that have no idea how to get started, and we want to be able to help guide them as well.
Yes.
So it's all inclusive.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a good offer, to help people like that.
We're
It's
super
amazing.
excited about our first gala. The gala is going to be in May, and that'll be when our very first winners get announced, and they'll be on the red carpet and the stage. And we have a beautiful glass trophy that
I've seen it. It is
yes, it's
so
like a
beautiful. It
reminds me of
almost
the
looks like
spiritual
a
flame.
fire.
Yes,
For me, a
yes,
flame.
yeah.
Is it a
So
flame? What is it? What?
yeah, they call it a sphere, but I call it the
Oh,
spiritual flame. I think it
oh.
represents a spiritual flame to me.
Well, Valerie, is there anything that you would like the people to still know about your book?
Well, if they go to buy the book, you can buy it on Amazon for $15.99. But if you go to my website, valeriejuillerat.com, I sell them for a bundle of 3. And the reason why I do that is 3 for $20. So it's a really good deal. But the reason is because I know how much the book, how the story is impacting people. So I want a book for you that you can keep, and then I want you to be able to have one for that person that you're thinking of right now that needs to hear this story, that missed this podcast. And then the other person that's going to come along some point in your life, maybe you keep it in your glove box or your car and you have it handy because somebody out there is going to go through some storms of life and you want to be able to encourage them. So the third one is to just be able to give away to somebody who needs some encouragement.
That is really amazing. Well, Valerie, our time has unfortunately run out, but I think we definitely have a full story of you now, and I pray that your business go well. I pray that God just keeps his hand over you and your family and your sons,
Thank you.
that they can stay clean and give their heart to Jesus. And
Can I share that part of the story? I didn't share that part of the story.
sure,
So my oldest son did go into he was in a Christian rehab program, gave his life to Christ while he was there, and got baptized. And then my other son, he was actually gave his life to Christ at a very early age, and that's a story you want to read in my book. It's very special. But they're both doing very well now, and
This has
going
been
into the
Give Me
professions
Hope
that they
with your
love.
host,
And so,
Johanna Vendel.
God has
Join
been very
Johanna
gracious
each
to us.
week and harness the
That's
transformative
amazing.
power of storytelling
thank you
to
so much for
facilitate
sharing
healing
that
and
story.
growth.
But
Wednesdays.
my blessings upon your family is still the same.
Thank you.
May God keep his hand over you all.
Thank you, and you as well.
Thank you so much. Well, that was definitely a heartfelt story that people need to hear. Because, like I said earlier, if she can do it, if I can do it, you can do it. And if you have a story to share, please reach out to me so that we can share this amazing story of yours. Because every story matters. And when God is in control of your life and he is the person steering you through those storms that Valerie was speaking about, then only then you will make it to the other side. I will be back next week. Have a good day and goodbye.
This has been Give Me Hope with your host, Johanna Vendel. Join Johanna each week and harness the transformative power of storytelling to facilitate healing and growth. Wednesdays, 11